Welcome to episode 94 of Meet the GIMP. My name is Rolf Steinert and I'm recording this in Bremen, northern Germany. We have a new user in the forum. It's Matt. And Matt has shot these images here from a vineyard in Missouri in the US. Missouri and wine? Well, if we here in Europe think about America and wines, we think first Californian wines. And then we think rich Americans who push the prices of the good Italian and French wines into, well, in regions without limits. But I think this is a thing of the past now. I learned here that Missouri was a very big center of winemaking, even larger than California, up to the Prohibition. And during the Prohibition, the wine making suffered severely there, and the Californians, well, they switched to making wine for the church. And okay, making wine for the church wasn't forbidden, and so they kept their vineyards. This is history, and Missouri tries to come back into the wine business. And Matt has some connections to a vineyard, and he does the photos for them. As he's just starting with photography, he asked in the forum how to make his images better. We had a lot of good tips for him. Matt had started with this image here. It was shot in December under overcast sky and with a little bit snow in between. After some tinkering with a blue sky script and a little bit of curves, Bert had made this out of it. Quite a difference, isn't it? There is a problem with the blue sky in this image because there are no shadows in the image. And if you fake something, you have to try to be convincing. I have not much time today for recording this show, so it will be fairly short and concentrate on one point, the histogram and the curves tool. A lot of you will know perfectly all the stuff about that. But I have a thing that I want to show for all, and I think not much of you will know that. I found out just 5 minutes ago. If you go to View and click here on, where is it? New View. Then you get a second view, a second window with the same image. Here we are. And you can, for example, look at this image in the desired resolution. Let's say 50% for looking. In a 50% resolution, you're supposed to see the details as they come out in print. I'm not really sure if that is true or not. And you can change the resolution in the other window. Let's say make a really big enlargement, manipulate this stuff here, and have a look how it looks like here. So it's working on one and looking at the other. I think it's a nice thing, and it's useful if you work locally on one part of the image and want to check how this turns out in the whole image. But now let's close this again and go to this image. GIMP has a built-in histogram here, and this histogram has some information. Let's simply enlarge this here. In this histogram is more information than in the histogram that looks much nicer that the curves tool offers. In this axis we have the number of pixels. Here are a lot of pixels, and these are less, and here are no pixels. And in this axis we have the value of the pixels, and in this case here the combined value of red, green and blue, the luminosity of the pixels. Here we go from black to white. Below is some statistical information. For example, we have 3,145,728 pixels, and all these pixels are accounted for because we can look at subsets of this histogram. The median is 127, and this says that the exposure, the meter of the camera, has worked perfectly. The camera has made this image average gray. And if you look at the image, it's fairly gray, but it should look a little bit different. And that's the trick with metering and influencing metering a bit. But I think if I have time enough, I'll talk at the end of the show about that. Here we have two sliders, one for black and one for the white edge. And we can also do this here, change this here. Let's set this slider to 254. And you see 255 is highest value, that's perfect white. And you see we have now 86% of, or 87% of the image of the pixels in our range here. And roughly 13% of all the pixels are perfect white. And this is the problem with the image. The sky is blown out. All the pixels that are white here are overexposed. There's no detail in them. You can't rescue them. Oh, let's put the photography part in here now. One should avoid the value 255 in images, except in parts of the image where you want to have a real white light. For example, if you shoot at night and have some lights in there, then it's okay if they are blown out. But only in the center, where you have really the center of the light, the brilliant part of the light. The corona should be darker. How to find out? Most cameras have either a histogram or a means for letting blown out pixels blink. And just switch that on. And if you have blinking pixels in this image here, it will be all the sky here. If you have these blown out pixels, then just reduce your exposure. Nearly all cameras have exposure compensation, and just dial one stop lower or 1.5 stop lower. It's nearly always easier to rescue stuff in the dark parts of an image if they suffer than to get stuff from the highlights. And all this here is really lost. There's no information in there. And even if you have an overcast sky, just expose in a way that the sky is not blown out, because even overcast sky has details, and it never looks like a whitewashed ceiling. And now back to the histogram. With these two sliders we can adjust the area of the image where we are looking at and get some information out of there. I will not use this anymore. Here on top we have a selection between a linear histogram and a logarithmic histogram. Linear means these number of pixels here, we can count them just go up here to 254, 255, we have here 411,475 pixels that are brilliantly white. And of course, if we have here some pixels, we can't see them because this scale here, 400,000, 200,000, 100,000, even 1,000 pixels, you wouldn't see here. Let's have a look what numbers we have here in this area. You see 20,000 pixels in this area, and you see no trace of them. Oh, the solution is logarithmics, and now this has changed considerably. It's a little bit difficult to explain logarithmics here, but let's have a look. This here are 2 pixels. The next one here are 3 pixels. 3 pixels, but this is not a third, sorry, other way around, not a third longer here. The more you go to the top here, the smaller are the units in this in this grade here, and we end here with 400,000, from 3 to 400,000, and so you can just perhaps it's the easiest part is perhaps an idea is to think of the bottom part as magnified and a gradient down in scale. The advantage of the logarithmic display is that we can see all parts of the image or all parts of this distribution, even where only some pixels are there, in the same scale as on the same diagram as millions or 100,000 of pixels. Just switch back here, you see here is nothing, and now we have this here. We can see another thing. The bottom part here is wasted. We have no real black in this image. And if you imagine this pulled over to the left border, we would have a little bit more definition in the sky. Here this goes up and goes down, and there would be some more information then. We can also look at the red, green, and blue distribution here, and even a nice thing, you see here blue is also in the dark parts we have pixels with a blue value of 0 here, and a nice thing we can look at RGB, and this is mixed up from red, green and blue, and where all 3 are we have this black, and the mix-ups are color-coded. This overexposure has made things a little bit difficult for post-processing. Not the white sky isn't the only problem. If we look at the details here, let's look here at the tree branches. You see here we have this is now really highly magnified. We have fairly good definition here in the branches, even in the small ones here. But when I go up into the sky, you see this is simply blown out. The light was so bright behind these branches that the sensor cells in this part simply have flown over and spilled over into the part that should have recorded here the branches. So, underexpose. You can always work really good with an underexposed image, but if you overexpose, everything is lost. The curves tool looks like the histogram. It has a built-in histogram, and you can also here change to the different red, green and blue channel, not to RGB. You can reset each channel, you can reset the whole thing here. You can switch between this logarithmic scale and the linear scale, and you can even save a curve that you have made as a preset and then use this preset. On the bottom we have a scale from black to white, and these are the colors in the input image, in this image here. This scale is different. It's the output, and this here is the translation line which translates from input to output. So let's look here. If we have a medium gray, we go up here, go to the left, and we end here in medium gray. Nothing has happened, and as long as this curve is straight, nothing happens. I just said that we have no real black in this image. And let's have a look here. There isn't. But when I say I want this here, the first darkest or the darkest pixel to represent black, I can do that. I just pull this black point to the left, to the right. Just drop it here. And now this dark gray translates to black. This medium gray translates to a slightly darker medium gray, and the white still translates to white. The difference between the input and output is the smaller the farther you go into the light here. And now let's have a look at the image. I can switch off preview here. This is better than before, isn't it? So the black point is the point where this curve starts. This point here is the white point, and you see this is white here. No, now it's black. Okay, this is the active point, and this is an inactive point. Would have been too nice to have a black point here and a white point. But of course we can do other stuff. We can say we don't want to have any black in this image, and pull this up here. And now the darkest part of the image, even if we had black here, would be gray. Okay, but let's go back to here. The image now has also a little bit more pop, a little bit more contrast, and that is, well, it's easy to explain, because contrast is the angle of this curve here. The steeper it is, the more contrast we have in the image. If we go to the extreme and make it really steep, we get higher and higher contrast. And well, we can do this here. And now we have the maximum contrast that is possible in this image. But we don't want that high a contrast here. Another thing we can do is bend this curve. And for that we have here a selection, smooth and freehand. Let's start with smooth. When I just grab the curve with the mouse pointer and pull it, we can change its form. And you see, we get very distinct effects here. For example, if we do this here, we have harsh contrasts in the dark parts. We have a lot of definition here, and soft gradients in the lusher parts of the image. Not the stuff that we want here, but what we want is a little bit less contrast here, a little bit less contrast in the bright tones, and a good contrast in the midtones. And I think I have overdone it here a bit. Now I have the problem, I would put the curve next to the image, but then you can't see it. Okay. But the exact result here is not so important, because I'm not doing Matt's homework here. You can add a lot of points to the curve, and you see that the curve behaves like a rubber band or something that is fixed at the points and reacts elastic to push and pull here. There's another thing that I have to show you, and that is the inspector. You see here that the icon, the mouse icon, switches between a plus, add a point in the curve, or a hand grab this point of the curve. Let's do this here. And when I go outside of the image, you see it gets to this, switches to this eyedropper. When I press the mouse button here in the image, you see here x 255. Here we are in this overblown sky. And while I press the mouse button, or keep the mouse button pressed, I can move over the image, and you see this vertical line wanders through the image. And so we can look where the areas of the image are, or in which area of the histogram these parts of the image are. This is sometimes nice if you want to know, for example here, okay, these are all in the area, these last two segments here, and here we are well below that. I wanted to fix this part of the tree, to try to fix it, and let's do that before we work on the general curve. There's one thing, as long as GIMP is 8-bit only, do curve work as one step, if it's possible. Because with every curve operation, you lose information in the image, because we have only 256 steps here. So just cancel. And now I zoom into this area of the tree here. And of course I don't want to change the whole image. I only want to change this part of the image. So I need, you have guessed it, a layer. Go to Layers and double this layer. Now we are working on a copy of this layer. There would be a lot of ways to enhance the contrast in this part of the image. For example, let's just try the old overlay trick. Well, doesn't work really good. So let's try it with the Curves tool. I just click into the image and just take the eyedropper. Here we have 108 and here we have 88. But this area is supposed to have the same brightness as this here. And here you see we have blowout here, a little spillover here. Here we have the right darkness. The same is true for this here. Now let's have a look at the sky. Here we are in the 250s. What I want to do now is to darken everything that is below 250, and then to keep everything above that as it is. So just let's look for the point. You can see here in the top left corner of the graph here the values. 250, 249. This is okay. And now I just pull this down. And you see we get a much darker tree here with a lot of blue in it, but we'll mend that in a moment. You see we get more twigs that were invisible When I pull this really down here, you see there is still detail in there. So we have to find a convincing way to do this. I have mentioned from time to time a book called Welcome to Oz from Vincent Versace, and he uses the term to make the impossible believable, and so I try to make this here believable. Well, I think this is believable now. To get rid of this blue stuff here, I simply desaturate this layer, and let's just do it the easy way. And now I only want to have this part of the image, and perhaps I should have looked at other parts of the image too, but let's just keep this tree here in. I want to have this part in my image and the rest here out of it. So I add a layer mask. A layer mask lets you look at parts of a layer and hides other parts of the layer. And we take a black layer mask. Black says hide me, and just click on it, and it's hidden. Now I take a white pen here, white brush, and I make this brush soft, because with a soft brush you don't see the edges that good. And additionally I reduce the opacity so that we paint not strictly white here, but in a grayish way. And now I just go over here. This was too much. Control Z and back to my toolbox, reduce the opacity. So let's just go over here, and you see the tree is coming out. And if I do this right and don't think about the test that I have to grade in a moment, then this can look quite convincing. Let's go over here. Of course I can switch my color and paint black over here to get this a little bit clearer, the border a little bit clearer. Or I could have selected the area before where I want to paint, so that I cannot overspill. You see, this is a little bit too much here. Now I should take black or dark gray and paint this over a bit. This looks better. And can switch the colors with the XK and paint it back. So let's have a look at this layer mask. Right click and show layer mask. You see now here my layer mask has a black is black and has some gray areas, and these gray areas are the parts of the second layer that is now visible. Just let me make this invisible again, show layer mask, and now I'm switching off the background, and you see this is the stuff that you see from the modified layer. Okay, let's have a look at the whole picture. I think I have overdone it. No problem, just select here the layer, it is selected, and reduce the opacity. And now I can dial a tree here. Just get the effect that I want. I think this is about right. Next step should be adjusting the whole colors, including this here. And for that I go to Edit, Copy Visible. Oh no! There's another way, a new way. I say New from Visible. And now everything that is visible is put in my new layer here. you see there's no change. Of course not, because this is all the stuff I could see just a moment before is now in this layer. And now I can work with my curves tool and just do the stuff we talked about just some minutes ago. Adjust the black point, get a little bit of an S-curve into my image, and I think this is well, I don't know how this looks for real. I really don't like the grass as it is now. It is living grass. Perhaps I don't know the weather in Missouri. Perhaps it's really living grass there and bright green. But here in our weather, this would be a dull gray, dull green like this here. But well, this is a decision of taste and of again believability. Is there a word like that? Believability. Okay, I just click on OK. Let this curve work its magic, and now we have the final image here. This was the original image. The image with the repaired tree here from overexposure, and now with a little bit of curves work. So it's possible to save a shot with GIMP, but it's much easier to get it right in the first place. So please don't blow out the highlights. Look in your camera documentation how to look at the histogram and see that there is nothing on the right side of the histogram. This here on the right side, there the histogram has to be empty. And you can have a big peak here. You will have a big peak in such a situation, but it should be a peak and not clinging to the right border here. Another thing you see here in the histogram now are these lines, and these are rounding errors from adjusting the curve. These are the artifacts that the curves tool make. You can't see them, but if you do a lot of curve operations on the same image following each other, you get really weird stuff, banding, because all the colors concentrate in only some numbers. But before I wrap this up, let me show you another very funny thing that can be done with the curves tool, and that is HDR in the very cheap way. For that, we take the image and make the curve into something like a sawtooth. And depending on the image you take, you get results from believable to really strange, where you think about wine and intoxication and so on. And of course you can change this again and make this worse, or so it's a really a fun tool. Perhaps this would be a good logo for a vineyard. No idea. Let me recap this. The curves tool is the key to nearly all color and lightness change. Of course, there are a lot of other tools to manipulate colors and brightnesses. For example, here the Levels tool. But this is basically the same thing in a different close here, and this is basically the same thing like the Curves tool, just in a different outfit and with less power. With the Curves tool you have the ultimate key to changing colors and brightnesses. You can directly say which tone shall translate into which tone in your output. This can be done globally for the whole curve, or it can be done for a small part of the curve with this freehand tool here. You can go up to the curve and say, just I want to have it this way, exactly this way, and you get it. This is extreme power with a little price. The price is that you have for one time to think about what you are doing here. This translation between input, go to the curve, go to the curve, go to the left, output. And when you have got this, you can do a lot of stuff. And one final tip before I say goodbye: if you have a point that you want to delete, just pull it outside of the curve and it's gone. If you want to discuss this episode, the Curves tool, this image, and so on, come to the forum at forum.meetthegimp.org. I'll put a link to this special forum thread where we work with this image into the show notes of this show in meetthegimp.org. If you want to write me an email, my email address is info@meetthegimp.org. And with the hope of a lot of comments and additional subscriptions, go to the website. If you're clicking on each week on the show to look at on the web, consider to subscribe to it. We are just below 3,000 subscribers. It would be great to go over 3,000. And with this, I say goodbye up to next Tuesday.
photocastnetwork.com, your photography resource in the potosphere. photocastnetwork.com